Hey guys, it's GHP, and let's get started with the very last of our constructed review of Set 3, the Dusk Road. So we're going to start with my favorite cards in the set, the Crest. So I'm going to cover all 6 of these. We have the Praxis, Elysian, Argentport, Skycrag, Feln, and Stone Scar Crest. So we're missing Combre, Haru. I shouldn't have made myself think about this on the spot. Xenon. Wow, I really can't name these. That's rather embarrassing. I don't know. I don't know what the other one is. But we're going to talk about them all. So, this is another dual end, and that's important to this game. That's just simply a very important. P.S. The one I'm looking for is Ricano. That's the other one. Another dual end in this game is fantastic. It makes the game more consistent. People often complain about the power system, and now you have 12 dual ends you can play in your deck. That should significantly help your power bases. Second of all, an always depleted power is okay. Yes, it's tempo negative. That's the only downside. Being able to scout, so every one of these you play, you basically draw about half of a card. That's really nice. You just get free value. When you're top decking, this is just better than drawing a power. And most of the time, if not always, these are just going to be better than other dual ads. Currently, if these are in my colors in a 2-faction deck, I'm playing 4 of these before I look at the other seats or banners. Often playing a total of 10 dual lands in my power bases, with these always being at 4 of. Even in Skycrag aggro, Stone Scar aggro as well. I just think they give you so much incremental value in a game. They also allow you to keep more power light hands. They allow you to dig deeper if you're looking for, your win condition or an out, something like that. And they also just add more skill to the game, which is always important in my opinion. Scout as a mechanic is kind of difficult to play with, and I think putting these in basically every deck, or we'll say the majority of decks having a crest, means that it should in theory increase the difficulty of the game, allowing more skillful plays. These cards are excellent, they're going to see tons of play, and thank you Direwolf Digital for printing these. Mysterious Orb, 3 mana relic. Plus 2 maximum power for each of your explorers. Your sentinels have overwhelm and endurance. I think this card's really weak. I've seen a lot of people play it, but I think this card's too weak because it requires, if you don't have an explorer, you don't get any power. I don't like conditional ramp spells, and that's where this card and I kind of butt heads. I am concerned that this card is simply too low impact on games. Sure, sometimes you're going to play it, you're going to get 7 power, and it's going to be great or absolutely useless. The Sentinels having Endurance and Overwhelm is not worth 3 mana by itself for sure. Also, a lot of Sentinels either have Overwhelm or Endurance. To me, I just don't think these cards are worth playing. I've seen a lot of people try it. I haven't heard a lot of good things though, and I don't really think I will. Monolith Guardian. So, for those of you who play Hearthstone, we got a 4 mana 7/7. But let's look at it like realistically. It's a Sentinel. This belongs in the Relics Matter Praxis Sentinel deck. This card's okay. A 4 mana 7/7 is pretty good. Cannot argue about that. The problem is, a 4 mana 1/1 when you either don't have a relic or it gets silenced is real bad. This card, I think, is too inconsistent to be good because a lot of the relics we have in the game are not great. To where sometimes you just don't draw them because you don't want to put that many in your deck either. I think this card's great. Its good days are great. It's 4 mana 7/7. I just think its bad days outweigh those good days because when this card falls flat, it's beyond miserable to play, and it really makes you regret playing that deck. I think this card's okay. It's going to see play in exactly one deck, and that's the Relics Matter Sentinel deck in Praxis, but that's it. Rolling Duo. 3 mana 3/3. Lifesteal Charge Gunslinger. Pretty simple card. Pretty amazing. I don't really have much to say. It's a decent body at 3 mana. It's a gunslinger, which is great. It is basically the aggro card that's built to fight other aggro cards of Rakano, like including or going alongside with Unseen Commando. I think this card is excellent. Rakano gets a charge unit. That makes his top decking just better. For example, you're putting a Harsh Raju, you're kind of trying to find some gas. This is so much better than your other minions, because you can play this and play the weapon on it and get your value before maybe it gets vanquished. Or torched, whatever. I think this card's excellent. It gives the Rakano deck, not only does it give it some lifesteal, which although Silverwing Familiar existed, sometimes Silverwing just was not good enough and way too low impact. While this is still a good body in the matches where the lifesteal doesn't matter that much. Charge is nice for post harsh roll recovery and just rushing your opponent down. And I just think this card is excellent. It definitely is good to see play at Rakano. Tinker Drone Dropper. So it's a 4 mana, really hard to cast. 3/4 flyer. Okay. When this hits the enemy player, play a 1/1 Grenadin. Just note this is a vanilla 1/1 Grenadin. I think the cost of putting this card in your deck with its casting cost makes this card just too hard to cast. For a 4-drop with 4 influence requirements, it really needs to be stellar to compete with anything. Ignoring the fact that it's Rakano, which has cards like Hammer, Might, and Crimson Firemaw. For example, this card doesn't ever compete with Firemaw, in my opinion. I think even if this hits the enemy player, it doesn't really do a lot. And if 4 mana 3/4 fire is just not that good and constructed, and I don't really think this infiltrate style effect is overly relevant on this card, so I don't think this card's very good. Orc Record Keeper. It's a 3 mana 4/4 with upside. That's not something I expected to say for at least another set. So, it's a Minotaur, which is good. It's an overstated unit with upside. I like everything about this card. I do not think this card is good enough for Combre midrange. And the reason for it is the 3-drop is already crowded. And this is not a good value card which you get to, your 9 mana, your 10 mana plays, which is where you want to be in Combre. I think this card does potentially have a home in Combre aggro, which is the Awakened Student, Initiate the Sands, Stand Together, Heavy, that list. I think this card has potential there because it's just a good aggressive card. That the whole thing about the Combre aggro deck is alongside Stand Together, it just plays cards that outstat you, and it goes great with Obelisk, things like that. And you can trade this card easily into other 4 and 5 drops, and they get more upside from it. This card's excellent. I definitely should see play in that deck and maybe some others. You never know, maybe there's a Combre Minotaur deck, and if so, this card's great for it. Shush. 3 mana fast spell, silence a unit and each copy in its owner's hand, deck, and void. One thing to note, so if there's 2 Dawnwalkers in play, I could only really work on one of them, which kind of sucks. But, I think this card is a tournament sideboard card. It's really nice to sometimes cut off, say, Dawnwalker, or against Reanimator, cut off all of your X card. But I think this card is too low impact compared to Desert Marshal Valkyrie Enforcer, which I think Combre decks are going to play 4 of both of those cards before they look at this card. And I think a spell that simply silences something is not good enough. Silencing the hand, deck, and void worth of them as well often is irrelevant, as 75 card decks, chances of you drawing them aren't that good. I don't think this card's great, but if it's good to see play, it's going to be tournament sideboards where you're really trying to hit certain cards from a deck, as it can be kind of your version of Raid of Frogs in, say, Combre. Scale Tender. 4 mana 3/3. Dinosaur ally, create and draw a 3/3 dinosaur with Overwhelm. So this is a 4 mana 6/6 worth of stats, assuming that you could trigger it, which is not bad at all. Sorry, my mustache is super itchy. I'm trying to be professional. Alright, now that that's out of the way. It's an Explorer, which is nice. It's an Elysium, which is just the better dinosaur section. The problem is there's a lot of 4-drops in dinosaurs, and this is not as good as them. It's not as good as Titan, which although it's not a dinosaur, often sees play there. It's not as good as the 4 mana dinosaur disc character / lord that you can use to buff things. It's just not as good as other 4-drops. Hell, it's not as good as Watcher of the Big Ones, in my opinion. Or at least, depending on the game you're playing. Getting, a 4-mana 6/6 worth of stats is pretty good. Often Sandstorm Titan is good enough just because of its stats, literal and endurance, plus extra effects. I just don't think this card is great for constructed right now, because the cards it's competing with are so good, not because this card is bad. Deep Forge Ranger, a 4-mana 4/4. 5-mana 4/4. Gets +2/+0 for each of your units with 2 or more battle skills. If you're trying to play a 2 or more battle skills deck, I don't think this is the payoff you are looking for. I think the payoff you're looking for is Unseen Commando and cards like that. I think this card is just a pile of stats, and often is a 5-mana 4/4, and even a 5-mana 6/6, for example, is just not that good. I don't think this card's constructed playable. Even though it's an unseen, it has the whole units with 2 or more battle skills matter text. I don't think this is a good enough card. Want to talk about a card I'm not sure if it's good enough? Island. It's a 7-mana 6/7 flying endurance. That's fine. That's pretty solid. Summon Songless 2 enemy units. Fantastic. The ultimate, pay 8, give Island +2/+2. She deals 6 to each enemy unit without a battle skill. This card curves incredibly, so she comes down, she takes the battle skills off some things. Next turn, you play a power, you shoot down probably everything that you just silenced, and some other stuff, hopefully. This card could really take over a game. The problem with this card is not this card. The problem with this card is the deck it's in, or the decks it's in. Around it are rather weak. I don't think Akaria Blue is in a good spot. I don't think Huru Control is that good right now, although some people like it. I think this card might go into a bug control, so Huru plus Shadow, maybe? That could be okay. But besides that, the problem with this card is finding a home for it. This card's very powerful. It's definitely going to find a home one day, though. This card's too good not to see play, but I don't want this to be my only win condition in the deck either, because it doesn't have something like Aegis. Holy crap. I thought there was less cards. Inquisitor's Halberd. 3-mana 3/1 relic weapon. Valkyrie 3/3/3 relic weapon. I don't think this is good enough because it's just... So without a Valkyrie, it's very understated. If you do have a Valkyrie, it's solid. The problem is 3 damage is not that good for 3 mana. I think I'd rather play Extract a lot of the time. This is a sort of a Akaria where you get an upside for just hitting people with it as well. I don't think this card is snowbally enough, and I just don't think it's good enough for a weapon compared to, say, Runehammer. Even though Runehammer is extra mana. Rooftop Vigilante. So it's a 3-mana 2/3 flying Warcry. That's pretty solid. It's a Gunslinger and a Valkyrie. Both are solid. Your units ruining weapons are deadly. That's more for the Gunslingers. They want weapons. I think this card's excellent if you're playing Archerport Valkyrie or Gunslingers. This is just a good 3-drop to be playing. It has, without the effect, it's still a decent value creature, but not amazing. And the effect can just win you a game by itself, or force you to put it into some really awkward blocks. I think this card's pretty good and should definitely see some play. Crywatch Trader. 4-mana 5/3 endurance, quick draw. Okay, it's hard to cast, but pretty decent. At the start of each turn, swap the attack and health of the shooter. So on your turn, it's a 4-mana 5/3. On your opponent, with endurance, a quick draw. On your opponent's turn, it's a 4-mana 3/5 with endurance, because quick draw doesn't matter. I think this card's quite powerful. The question is it better than other 4-drops in Archerport? I do think this card is potentially good enough to compete with a card like Impending Doom. I think this card is just powerful. It also has 2 keywords, which is relevant for Unseen Commando. I just think this card is powerful enough that it's going to find a home somewhere. The question is it good enough to slot into the existing version of Argenport? And I don't know if that question's been answered yet. I've seen a lot of people test it. Seen a lot of people test without it as well. And I don't really know what the census on this card is yet. Caleb. Probably the hardest card in the set to evaluate. 4-mana 4/4. Whenever you play a spell, Caleb gets +1/+1 this turn. Okay. Pretty weak body. Ultimate, pay 6, put your hand into your deck to draw the same number of cards +1. I think this card is secretly a combo card. And I don't know how, but that's just the vibe I get. I don't think control decks want this because they want to get to a lot of mana, and they just often, like, if they have a ton of cards in hand, they've already won the game. And this is not where they want to be putting, you know, a 4-mana 4/4 is just not what they want to put in their deck. Aggro decks just would only be discarding like one card, so that's not really that good. Or it'd be draw a card for 6 mana. So combo decks are the only place I can think of, and there's no combo deck right now that could ever use this card. I think these cards are one of those cards that has potential in the future, but not right now. I just think it's too weak. The body kind of sucks. The ultimate is powerful, for sure, but I'm not sure it's powerful enough to make this card see play. Iceberg Warchief. You're 5 out of 5 for Yeti. Okay, that's okay. Spells deal +1 damage. Okay. The other Yeti had +1 attack. Okay. It's another Yeti Lord. I think this card's really good at the Yeti's deck. It's just a good curve topper. I'm not sure. That deck doesn't need Scouting Party in my opinion, but I haven't played the deck. And if that's the case, it's pretty solid in that deck. It's just curve top, makes Obliterate good, makes Rockslide amazing, it makes Torch better. Like, I think this card's quite powerful for the Yeti's deck. Skywalk Enforcer, 3 mana 1/4 flyer. Whenever you play a curse, oh, it's an unseen. Gets +2 attack. I think this is a build around card that if there's a curse found deck, like heavy curse deck, this is a instant 4 because I think this is the payoff to play a ton of curses. Not some of the other cards we've seen. This card is pretty weak outside of a Curse Matters deck, but in a Curse Matters deck, this card is absolutely excellent and super powerful. It comes down as kind of weak. The second you play a Curse, it's amazing. A 3 mana 3/4 flyer is great. Anything past that's absurd. Rindra, 4 mana 5/5, hard to cast. Summon Nightfall. Rindra has Lifesteal and Overwhelm at night. Card's great. It's just a good top end for a Feln mid-range deck, Feln tempo, whatever you want to call it. I've also seen him played in Reanimator, Feln Control, things like that. Bug Control. This card is just really powerful. It's an amazing stat line. I know it's not as good as Titan, but that's its only real competition. And the effect of it being amazing against aggro decks, because it just is, it comes down, it can block, or your opponent has to deal with it. Otherwise, you're gaining 5 life, drawing an extra card, regassing, and then you can play another Rindra. You can play another Nightfall card to keep this effect going. This card is really powerful. It's definitely going to see a fair splash in Constructed. What type of cards it won't see? A 3 mana 2/2 called Recycler. It's accredited. And when one of your other units dies, so this is an ultimate, create and draw a +3/+2 weapon with Overwhelm. A 3 mana 2/2 that could put a 3/2, sorry, a 3 mana 2/2. They could put a 3/2 weapon into your hand. Is not playable. I would just rather play Obsidian Golem, which that is a 2 mana 2/2 that when it dies, you get a 2/2 weapon. I think that card's just better than this. I think this body is so weak that you're not really ever going to get to abuse this ability too often. As awesome as this card is and looks, to be honest, it's just not getting there. Hello, Vicious Highwayman. It's a 4 mana 4/2 with Warcry Charge. It sounds like Bandit Queen. Summon, deal 1 to an enemy. When an enemy unit dies, this dude gets Lifesteal and Quick Draw this turn. And it's a Gunslinger. This card is a huge upgrade for Stone Scar Burn. And the reason for it is it gives you something for mirror matches and other aggro decks, where for example Rakano has forms of Lifesteal, and so does Argenport. Stone Scar plays Lethrai Falchion if they're desperate. Like, it doesn't have good mirror tools for that stuff, which is one of the issues that deck had. This is amazing in mirror matches. Come down, shoot your Oni runner, boom, smack you for 4. That is a huge swing at a game. I can understand why the casting cost is kind of high, but this card is so impactful. It's a good top end for, say, or top end wit check for Stone Scar Gunslingers. I don't think it's competing with Bandit Queen. I think you play it with Bandit Queen, which is also a Gunslinger. And I just think this card is a stellar card that I'm surprised people didn't instantly play tons of it. I slept on it a little bit, but I started playing it the last couple of days in Stone Scar Bird and have never looked back. Alright, Failed Reflection. 6 mana 4/4. Oh boy. Once per turn, you may sacrifice another unit to give this dude +4/+4. I simply don't think this card's constructed playable. I think it's a draft bomb. But I think it's just, like, there's so many good sacrifice outlets in this game that this is not what you want. Even though this one is free and makes this guy huge. At 6 mana, this card doesn't win you the game. And I think that's around the range where your cards need to start winning you the game. If you're looking for sacrifice outlets, go look at Grenadins. For around that mark, you have the 5 mana 4/6 that you can draw cards with. That card's better than this, in my opinion. And as a sack outlet, you have Gear Cruncher, which is 7 mana, and it wins you the game by itself, potentially. This card doesn't do any of that. It's just a pile of stats, which I don't think is good enough. Duskwalker, 4 mana 4/4. Summon Nightfall. At night, you have +2 power. Maximum power. This card's solid. I've seen a lot of people playing this in Big Xenon along with Lunar Magus to trigger Night, and that seems solid, just as a ramp spell on a good body. This is a solid body, nothing special. I think this card is playable. One of these cards you put in your deck, you don't really think twice about it too much. You cut it sometimes. I don't think the card is a 10 out of 10 or anything like that, or going to be the next all-star card. But I think this card has some constructed merits in a Xenon deck, just for ramping. Angel Deathjaw, 5 mana, 3/3, ambush at night, your other dinosaur +1/+1. It's a hard to cast Xenon Dinosaur Lord. That's just awful. It's too hard to cast. Xenon is not where your dinosaurs want to be right now. The ambush at night thing pushes you in a really awkward direction, although there are dinosaurs that grant you night and things like that. I just don't think this card is very good. When I first reviewed it, I thought it was bad, and I review it now, and I still think it's just bad. Choreographer, first card I reviewed this set. 6 mana, 5/5. Actually really easy to cast if you're, casting. It's harder to cast Heart of the Vault than it is this, because you play Deceit, and you cover a large portion of this card. And fighting 2 of each is much easier than 3 of 2. So it's a 6 mana 5/5 flyer. +2/+2 you have a relic. So if you have a relic, it's a 6 mana 7/7 flyer, which is okay. When this hits the enemy player, if you have 5 or more spells you avoid, draw a Dragon Eye. Dragon Eye is a 0 mana spell that draws 3 cards. It's a Dragon Explorer, which is kind of weird. I don't think this card's very good, and the reason for it is it's kind of hard to turn this card on sometimes. If you're casting this card successfully and it not dying, that's a weird situation to be in, but often means both the players didn't really do anything that game. If this comes down late in the game and it hits the player, it can really take over the game. Another issue is you don't really want to play many relics in these colors right now. I guess you could play Power Stone, but I don't think there's enough relics to make this card a payoff in a deck in this color combination currently. I think the times that you don't get the Dragon Eye of hitting someone feel awful, and I just think for the cost of putting this in your deck at being 3 colors, I do not think this card is worth the payoff, even though it's awesome. Kamikaze. 2 units in your hand, share a type, get an influence of your choice. If you're playing a tribal deck, play this card because, especially if you don't have crests, because it's Diplomatic Seal, but often better in those decks, especially if you're playing 30 plus units. If you're not playing a ton of units, I've seen Gunslingers play 24 units still, which is a little bit low in my opinion, but I've seen it. Then triggering this isn't that easy. But once you are really playing a ton of units in your deck, like the Skycrag Yeti's deck is mostly units, this card is great in that deck just to help fix your influence. It's got to be better than Diplomatic Seal a lot of the time. It has some of the downsides of Diplo, the later you go, the harder it is. But that's fine. I think this card just makes opening hands just much better. And our very last card of set 3, the Dusk Road. Family Charter. So 1 mana relic, Scout. Okay, so I'm paying a little bit of extra mana to get the Scout. The upside is I can pay 6 and sacrifice this card to draw 2. I think this card is too low impact to actually see constructed play. The Scout is worth half of the card's cost, and unless you get really flooded late game, I don't really care about the pay 6 to draw 2. And the reason for it is the decks that want this are control decks, and control decks already got a bunch of card draw this set, where I don't think they need even more filtering. Like Felon now has Wisdom, Crest, and Strategize to help draw cards. I don't think this is needed to help actually facilitate control decks. I know it's a decent and cheap relic, and that's what this card actually could be used for, is in a Relics Matters deck, maybe in the Curiox deck. But I don't think this card's very good. I think there are other good relics if you need relics, and if you don't need relics, I just don't see a reason to play this card currently. Although this is the card that I think, specifically in a Curiox style deck, I could definitely be wrong of. If you're playing, say, a bunch of Relic Matter cards. Well, guys, this has been my review of Set 3, the Dusk Road. Thank you guys all for tuning in for these last 6 videos or so. I appreciate it, and I'll see you guys with our next content.